Malinowski was expected to tour around, studying a number of different tribes. But off the east coast of Papua, on the far-flung archipelago of the Trobriand Islands, he came to a crucial realization. It was an insight that would help him transform anthropology. Early one morning, Malinowski joined the local islanders to watch an ancient custom. The natives had told him that this was a sacred ceremony called Yoba. With drums and chants, they send the spirits of their ancestors, called the Baloma, back to a sacred afterworld. The natives' reports seem to suggest that Yoba was a solemn occasion, which everyone took very seriously. But that's not what Malinowski saw.
The priest directing the ritual is on his own in a corner muttering away the prayers and incantations that he's been told, and most of the people are not paying the blind bit of attention to him.
When the Tsakau sang out, everybody just walked off. The only ones left to chase off the Baloma were myself, 5 or 6 urchins, and Ginger, the cook, and very undignified we were too.
They're chattering away, they're laughing, they're looking after their children. And he says there are a whole lot of children woozing around, small boys making a big fuss, terribly overexcited and so on.
Yoba is undoubtedly important, but in its performance it bears no trace of sanctity or solemnity. It was not so much a religious proceeding, it was a party.
The reality he observed bore no relation to the reports he'd heard of natives being in awe of the ancient spirits. It was a critical moment for Malinowski.
I suddenly realized, with astounding clarity, that to understand people you cannot rely upon what they say they do. Instead, you must rely upon yourself, watching and seeing what they do.
You realize that people tell you one thing but do something else, not because they're lying to you, but they're just like a football player who explains the rules of football to you, but isn't really giving you an insight into how he plays football, or into the tactics and strategy which he probably can't articulate very well, but which he can act out for you and which you can see in action.
Malinowski realized that anthropology's tradition of relying only on what other people say was shockingly flawed. If he was going to fully understand Trobriand culture, he would have to get much closer to native life. So instead of travelling on, Malinowski decided to stay in the Trobriand Islands. He gave up his lodgings with the local colonists and pitched a tent in a village right amongst the natives.
Malinowski decides to come down from the veranda, go into the village and pitch his tent there. And it's so important that because he wanted to move away from the idea of just having locals come to him to answer his set of questions, a questionnaire framed in terms of his categories, his understandings, his priorities.
Malinowski wasn't just moving in, he would immerse himself in every detail of Trobriand life in order to get to the truth about their native culture.
As the natives see me every day, they stop being interested or alarmed or even self-conscious in my presence. I have become part and parcel of their life, a necessary evil mitigated by regular donations of tobacco. By living with the natives and taking part in village life, I am learning the native's point of view, his relation to life, and thereby his vision of the world.
From now on, Malinowski wouldn't be a mere observer. By learning the local language, he would become a participant observer.
Malinowski was good at participant observation because he was such a determined, dogged character. I think he realized during his fieldwork that this was the way forward, that he had a revolutionary technique on his hands. This is going to change anthropology forever. It's going to set a completely new precedent.
But what he didn't yet realize was that he'd also started his own personal odyssey. Events conspired to make this one of the longest field trips ever. In 1914, World War I broke out. The British Empire was at war with Germany.
And what changes things for Malinowski is this accident of being caught in Australia during World War I. I mean, it's really an extraordinary moment.
With Europe in chaos, his camping trip would last longer than a few months. Apart from the odd trip to Australia, Malinowski now felt abandoned, alone in the jungle, with only the so-called savages for company.
The sun is almost dipping into the perfectly still lagoon. The woman next door has begun her wailing. And it is also inexpressibly sad in its remoteness and detachment from my life. I am stranded here, far from all that makes life bearable. It is as if I have no place to return to.
But there was an upside. This forced isolation would allow him time to really uncover the truth about Trobriand culture. And soon he was getting very close to the natives indeed.
A pretty, finely built girl walked ahead of me. I watched the muscles of her back. Her figure, her legs, and the beauty of her body, so hidden to us whites, fascinated me. At times, I was sorry I was not a savage and could not possess this little animal.
For a man who prided himself on objective precision in his work, Malinowski's love life was a chaotic shambles.
He would feel great gusts of passion, and he'd be jealous at the slightest hint of any infidelity. Very, very powerful infatuation, schoolboy-like crushes, if you like.
He fell in love with every woman.
I'm always thinking
that
this
he
is
met,
the one.
you know?
Yes?
Yeah, I mean, the way he writes about each woman. You know, I'm in, this passion, but then there's, so many of them. Just
Which one am I talking about today?
Okay. And at the same time, it's like this mix of being a complete sort of lecherous fool and this romantic, who's really. Deeply feels every relationship.
This man, filmed in the 70s, remembered Malinowski's stay in his village. Whatever actually happened, his gusts of passion were met with equal gusts of remorse. Even when visiting Australia, where he had 2 girlfriends, including his fiancée Elsie, he couldn't keep his eyes off a third.
I sat up with one of the older women. She is not stupid, but neither is she cultured. However, I found myself undressing her in my mind and calculating how long it would take me to bed her. In short, I betrayed Elsie in my mind. And as for Mother, I cannot bear to think of her missing me. I am appalled by my lack of moral fiber. My own death would be the best way out of this muddle.